Okay, I think we're good. I think so. I don't know. Let's go ahead and try to send it. Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noisera, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and this is show number 1604, season 16, episode 4. And I have titled this episode, Slashing Safety, Distinct Biological Changes in Epstein's Pedophilia. Yeah, and even that episode title doesn't really do it justice as far as encapsulating what we're actually dealing with. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, we are indeed dealing with pedophiles. We are indeed dealing with some very, very sick people that have some really sick and twisted proclivities. And yeah, I think it's all out here in the open now, which is most important. For somebody like myself who's been going at this for like the better part of a decade, it's finally good to kind of get this all out here for everybody to see this. But what you actually have to think about too on the other side is if they're letting all this come out right now, what is coming next? And clearly, you know, we're doing this as they're talking about going to war with Iran, all kinds of tankers, all kinds of equipment being moved, right? Like it's going down. You know, if they're letting this type of information get out, you can be sure that everything that comes next is going to be increasingly crazy, increasingly more intense. And if anything, you know, this is kind of what I've been alluding to, how we're getting into the time frame of the reset wars, right? As all this stuff comes out, as the truth comes out of how the world works and who's really running things and how they've kind of got this whole system together, they've got to cover it up and make way for the new world order. And in order to do that, they've got to traumatize us to where we forget about all the things that were truthful, all the things that brought us to this point, why we became truth seekers, what was really going on with the mass programming of society and so much more. And so as this information comes out, understand everything is going to change from here on out. They're going to do more crazy things, more false flags. They'll shut the power down. They'll do all kinds of stuff, man. And I don't know. I think that's what it boils down to is like, you know, like I've had people that have been like, well, now, you know, what are you talking about now that all this stuff is coming out? It's like, well, you're still talking about the same type of conspiracies because they've evolved. And that just means we're moving into the operational phase. And the operational phase is the depopulation agenda, right? Is the population control agenda where they're rolling out the drones, they're rolling out the robots, they're installing the control grid, they're getting you hooked up, right? They're disconnecting people from society. They're doing this whole thing while simultaneously taking us to war, poisoning our food, doing this, that, and the third. And it really is crazy to truly see. So yeah, no, just because all these conspiracies are coming out doesn't mean we don't have more that are taking place and that we don't have even crazier times ahead of us. So again, I'm rambling and ranting, jumping right into the show. Let me go ahead and just start this off with the intro and the updates, and then we'll kick this off. If you guys want to support this operation, the best way to do so is to go to patreon.com/noise, patreon.com/NOIZCE. That's the best way to support us in this current configuration. Long story short, people are going to be getting the download as to why we had a abrupt ending to season 15, either this weekend or in the middle of next week before show number 1605 comes out. I'm going to just start putting out content over there. Patreon.com/NOIZCE. That's the best way to support us in this current configuration. We got a lot of different things coming your guys' way because of the work, man. That's what it always boils down to. I think it's crazy because everybody's a podcaster now. Everybody's an influencer now. Everybody's a conspiracy theorist now. Everybody's a truth seeker now, right? It's weird. And it really is weird kind of being in this position too, where you just kind of have to pull back from it. And if anything, that's why we have to, from my perspective, I think that's why we kind of have to, wrap it up, so to speak. But at the same time, go launch something else. And I think that's what's going to be called the noise era, because we truly have entered into the noise era. We've entered into a time frame where there are no more freedom factions. There are no more truth seekers. But there's truth seekers in that sense, but there's no more people actually fighting for freedom. We're in this like control grid where everybody's, just half a cyborg or half something, man. We truly have entered into the noise era. And I think that's going to be where we have to kind of transition the show. We have to button up what we've done so far with these past 16 seasons. And then we've got to launch something else that is a little bit more relevant, a little bit more personable, a little bit more like digestible for people, man. Because you have to understand, we cover some pretty heady content over here. We are not joking. And as the world becomes aware, you're going to need people that have that pedigree and that history, that aren't some Johnny-come-latelys or some Susie Suddens, that understand the complexities of what we're dealing with and how we are still dealing with the same control grid system that put people like Epstein into power, right? And I'm starting to think too, man, like even with all these so-called arrests that are coming out, look at the information regarding Epstein's work. You don't think that he's got clones of people? You don't think that the elites have organic robotoids or humanoids or clones or some kind of, replicants of them that can take the fall? Meanwhile, they're in some underground bunker just kind of watching all this play out. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show, right? That's a little bit of a prelude into the intro. But it's me just saying, man, like we are in some interesting days and it's not going to slow down. And I like what the show has become, but we've got to evolve and we've got to adapt because we truly do have some very interesting things ahead of us. But again, patreon.com/noise. That's the best way to support us in this current configuration. Patreon.com/NOIZCE. That's the best way to support us right now. There will be more ways in the very near future. What's crazy? I'll say this and I'll go ahead and start jumping into some of the content. What's crazy is we're using StreamYard to broadcast, right, to do the show. And they have this software in here where it allows me to auto generate clips from the show and put it onto Instagram. And so that's what I'm doing. That's what we're doing right now. We are currently going to be putting some of these clips not only on YouTube to kind of revive that audience over there, but also over on our Instagram. Let me go ahead and just fire through the intro, and then we'll kick off everything else. I'm just getting started, guys. I'm very wired right now. Just last year, Blog Talk Radio discontinued our services. We were able to revive them through Spreaker. You can now find us on Spreaker, Google, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, Alexa, Podcast Addict, and every other major podcasting platform. We were able to recover our YouTube channels from 2014, Noise Era, as well as our backup channel. We are also simulcasting on Odyssey, where you can find our content all the way back to 2018, season 6. Again, the pedigree is long, man. We're not some Johnny-come-latelys. We've been talking about this type of stuff for a minute, and I think what's imperative about getting this stuff down now is for the continuity's sake. The proliferation of information these days is crazy, bro. Like somebody literally, and we'll talk about this later on the show, somebody literally took the Jeffrey Epstein documents and made a whole web, an interactive app. And we'll go through it. It's very, very well done. But it's me just saying, people need to understand that this is a far-reaching thing. And if you've got people like Princess Andrew, getting arrested, high-profile resignations, What did Pam Bondi say just the last week? If this stuff starts going down, it's going to topple the system. That's exactly what they want. That's a part of the Great Reset. That's a part of so many things unfolding right now, and we are truly in the event horizon. Again, if you guys want to get updates to what we're doing, check out the Discord, check out both of our Telegrams. Like I said before, we've been posting inside of our Instagram, trying to get active again, man. Trying to, hey, let people know we're still here. We're still cooking. We stay cooking. We're never cooked. You can support us again through Coffee, PayPal, Patreon, and Cash App. All the links for that are in the description bar below. You can support yourself by getting some New Leaf Naturals CBD oil using promo code FOF25. You can get anywhere from like 10 to 30% off. It's pretty cool. They've been one of our longest supporters. They were huge. We bankrolled them in during COVID times because it was a big relief. People really found it useful. Again, get yourself some storable goods. Get prepared, man. Like I think it's crazy. People are expecting an intense market crash in the next couple of months. And like I said, bro, like we're in false flag territory. Things are really going to start popping off from here on out. And with that being said, let's just go ahead and start jumping into the main portion of the show. I'll tell you guys up front, the intro is a bit of a trip. You got Obama talking about aliens. You got Tucker Carlson talking about supranational governance, right? Globalism, things of this nature. It's going to be a pretty wild and intense intro. That's all I'm going to say. With that being said, here's Tucker Carlson talking about supra governments.
Profit from that.
Totally plugged in.
Like at a level that, as someone who just like covers government, I feel like I know plugged in people. Never met anyone that plugged in.
Yeah.
So what is this? He represents no government. He clearly works for Mossad. He clearly works for CIA. He clearly is in contact with both, and clearly British intelligence. So he's not working for Israel. He's not working for the United States. He's not working for the UK exclusively. He's not working for anybody, really. He's kind of this independent power broker working with a series of other independent power brokers together who form some kind of supra government above all representative government in the West. That's the clear, so like, what is that?
Yeah. Do you think we'll see arrests?
Well, it's been almost 20 years that some of this material has been in the custody of governments. Most of it is still hidden, and there have been no arrests. Instead, there's been a consistent, over decades, effort to shield the people exposed from arrest. So, no, I mean, there may be performative arrests. But the big question is not, was there blackmail? Yes. Was there sex with minors? Of course. Was there some kind of weird religious practice that we would describe as witchcraft? Oh, yeah. But the bigger question is like, what was this? It's clearly an informal governance body over what the rest of us consider the authorities, which is to say governments, nation states.
Yeah, it truly is crazy when you really get into the meat and potatoes of it. I think the easiest thing is to say, oh, like he's an Israeli Mossad spy. Oh, he's this, he's that. It's like, no, he's greater than all of those things. And that's why he's been allowed to operate with impunity for so long. And it's not even about money so much as it is about power. He says that he represents the Rothschilds, as you know, in some of his emails. So it's not about money, right? It's not about power. It's about what these people believe and what they worship. And we'll talk more about that later on in the show. But I think it's imperative, again, that people understand what we're talking about. This is the occult world. This is occultism. This is Satanism. This is Luciferianism. And yes, there is a difference because there are people that do believe that they are, doing white magic, doing good things. And it's not even that. If you dig deeper into some of the work of his like inner circle, he talks about practicing thelema. He talks about reviving old secret societies, the Zodiac Club, things like this. His bank account is named Baal, right? So these are people that are deeply steeped into the occult. He even had Aleister Crowley ritualistic sex magic. So it's like, what do these people believe in? What are they trafficking in? Why did he want to have the painting of what was it, like the mangling of innocence, the slaughter of innocence? Why are all these things associated with this type of individual and the things that he does? Again, let's continue. This is just to set the tone. We've got a lot more to get into, like this right here. Peter Levenda, an author, talking about the United States not disclosing the alien presence because it has total dominion. We have no power over them, no sovereignty, and they cannot protect us. Let's listen.
Demonstrably, we can't capture it. We can't attack it. We can't do anything about it. It has total dominion over our skies if it wants to. It shows up when it wants to, when it wants to. We can't predetermine this. We cannot control them. There's nothing, we have no power over them, right?
Right.
Demonstrably, we have no power over them, which means we have no sovereignty, which is a major problem for the US government.
Mm.
Disclosure is a problem for them because they would have to come out and say, sorry, guys, we don't control the skies.
Right.
They do. In fact, they probably control the oceans. In fact, we're not so sure about underground either, right? We control like about this much here,
Very thin layer.
and only if they don't show up and bomb us for some reason, right?
Mhm.
Or land on our thin layer and abduct our citizens or something. So there's no possibility of an agreement with them, number one. So they cannot protect us on a legal basis for sure, but they also on a technological basis cannot defend us. We don't know where they come from. We can't invade their territory.
Right.
All ideas of warfare go out the window.
Yeah. We have no map of
No.
where they operate.
No, we have no leverage at all. So we're at the mercy of these things.
And I think it's important that we talk about this. Well, and I'm going to spend some time on this because this kind of sets the point for everything we get into here. And I wanted to lead in with Tucker Cross and talking about supra governance, because we're talking about, again, a breakaway civilization. We're talking about secret societies. We're talking about the Illuminati. We're talking about like the real deep state, black budget secret programs to where they're not even, it's not about money. You see, like this is why in their emails they call us goyim. This is why they tell us to pay attention to the real world, this fabricated reality and this lie that they're able to manipulate. There are forces at work through which our governments and people here can't do a single thing for, bro. Like they can't do anything. You see, there are forces at work that are greater than us. But this disclosure that we're being told, this is a completely different story, which is very, very sketchy to me. This is why you're seeing so much civil war talk in so many different institutions with Donald Trump, with globalism, all of this just, world order stuff, because these supra governments, these supranational governments, these organizations, they've accrued so much power now that nation states themselves are useless. This is why you're going to see the corporatocracy rise. This is a part of the changing landscape as well. And I'm sure you're wondering, how does this all tie into like aliens and UFOs? Well, it's a part of a new belief system. It's a new belief system and at the same time an understanding. I've been saying this a lot, very heavily last year, really harping on the crypto-terrestrials, how they're not extraterrestrials, how these are just previous versions of humanity that have survived these cataclysmic events. That's why you got these people building bunkers. And we've got an article about that coming up next. We've talked about it very frequently. This is why we say, hey, they're going to be out there in their bunkers up here with their clones. Like it's a whole thing, this collapse situation. There's a document between Peter Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein where they talk about just that, collapsing society so they can come out on top. These are the time frames that we are in, where you have megalomaniac scientific Satanists with control over life, playing God. It's even talked about by the Russians. They call us the Atlanteans because of what these people are doing. And I think, I know I sound like I'm jumping all over the place. I think what I'm trying to say is, how do I set a foundation for explaining that we have hit a colon time period? The controlling forces of the world are saying no more humans. It's time to cull the population. We're going into a reset. Here's the scientific dictatorship, the technocracy that's going to come out on top. If you don't bend the knee, you will be eradicated. And the aliens are simply just like a cover story. Like I'm getting ahead of myself, absolutely. But Peter Levin is saying it properly. Yeah, we don't have any leverage with these things. We've talked about things that are the size of 3 football fields going into the coast of the ocean, going into the ocean off the coast of America, and then just disappearing off of our radar. Where are these things going? They're not from Galaplaxius 9 or Zeta Reticuli. They're within our Earth. And there are documents too from Jeffrey Epstein talking about keeping everything underground and how they just have to get access to different tunnel systems underground. There are people that are doing advanced aerial photography of Zorro Ranch saying that it screams underground base. That I'm sure if you were to do LiDAR or some type of radar, you would see a massive underground structure. And this is what a lot of the people, the victims, have talked about. So when you talk about breakaway civilizations, when you talk about secret societies, when you talk about aliens and the elites and things of this nature, you bump into them. You see, and these people, they don't believe they're humans. You see, let me proceed forward. Maybe we'll circle back to this. I'm just trying to get the show started. Obama says aliens are real, but they're not being kept at Area 51. This is an article by Nima Harris from The People's Voice. They put this up February 15th. It says that Barack Obama has said he believes that aliens are, quote, real, but he says he doesn't believe the longstanding conspiracy theories that the U.S. is concealing proof of extraterrestrial life at a secret military facility in Nevada called Area 51. It says the former U.S. president made the remarks on the No Lie podcast with Brian Tyler Cohen, released on Saturday.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in what is it?
Area 51.
Area 51. There's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy, and they hid it from the president of the United States.
What was the first question you wanted answered when you became president?
Where are the aliens?
Where are the aliens?
Meanwhile, we're talking about like synthetic beings, artificial humans, advanced robots, designer babies, ectogenesis, gametogenesis, cloning. Yeah, where are the aliens? What are we? How can we determine that we're human? And you see, this is what you're going to begin to see come out next with the aliens, that it was the aliens that made us. No, we're not made in the image of God. You're going to see that complete throwaway from the Christian ethos, and you're going to hear this injection of a transhumanist spiritual ideology that the aliens made us. And they're going to have all the signs to prove it, that we're not really humans, that we're actually aliens, and we need to go, out into space. But this clip made news. It went viral with Barack Obama talking about seeing the aliens and knowing this, right? But this is, again, a part of the narrative that we've been hearing, that the aliens are coming, that we have access to them, or that they're in control, the whole disclosure movie. And there was a viral clip that years ago of like a CGI alien. We really thought that Barack Obama was going to be the president that did disclosure. There's a clip out there where, man is at war. There's all this stuff going on. And Barack Obama seen walking with a holographic representation of an alien, delivering peace, bringing cures, doing all these things. And that's the story that you're going to be told, that, hey, this is a peaceful invasion. It's going to be like something out of childhood's end, where we accept the aliens. Because as Peter Levinda said, there's nothing that we can do. We're not an interplanetary species. We're just now figuring out, electromagnetics, electrogravitics, hydro-powered stuff. We're not an intergalactic species. This is all that we have. And then you could get into the flat earth ideology to where it's like, hey, we're inside of a giant ice-walled environment and that we're kept here and that this is a prison planet, or at least a prison section of the planet, because they know that if we get out of this construct, that we'll destroy everything that we come into contact with. Let's go ahead and proceed forward. More with the UFO talk. Crashed UFO is so big that a building has to be built around it, says U.S. Congressman. Another one from Nima Harris of the People's Voice. They put this up February 18th. It says that a U.S. congressman has claimed that a country is in possession of a UFO so big that they've had to build a quote, entire building around it. Missouri Congressman Representative Eric Burleson says that he has heard reports about a crashed alien craft that is so large it cannot be moved. He says he knows the location where the massive UFO is allegedly contained, but added, quote, I'm not going to mention the country because I've heard of it inside of a closed setting, and I want to protect my classification level. He said that the facility is guarded like it's some kind of commodity. The Daily Express reports that, speaking to Rob Finnerty, the U.S. News channel Newsmax, Representative Burleson expressed his frustration that he had been unable to investigate the alleged craft personally. Quote, I'm having a difficult time getting access to facilities that are just within a few miles from my office in Washington, D.C., he said. So, to try to attempt to go to another country and get permission at that level is going to be somewhat insurmountable, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to continue to try. Burleson added that if he got his hands on a piece of undeniable evidence about the existence of alien visitors, he would not hesitate in making it public. Quote, if I come under any hard evidence, whether it's physical or video evidence that is absolutely definitive, while I'm going to do what I can to protect our national security and our nation's interest, I will not hold back on telling the American people that we are not alone, or not alone in this universe. While he refused to name the country in possession of the quote craft, Burleson was accompanied in the interview by famed UFO researcher Dr. Stephen Greer, who was more than forthcoming with details. He claimed that he had spoken to someone connected with the top secret Pentagon project to research these alleged craft. And this source, quote, specifically knew of one alien craft in the mountains outside Seoul, South Korea. It was so huge they had to build a structure around it. Explaining that as a private citizen, he is not bound by the same conditions of secrecy as Representative Burleson, Greer claimed that multiple alien craft had been, quote, brought down, and that some of them were, quote, bigger than a football field. Greer went on to claim that there is another crashed alien craft near Fort Sill in Oklahoma, and that a structure had been built around that too, in order to conceal its presence from the general public. Let me pause right here, because this is whenever you start getting into alien archaeology, where they find these advanced crafts in anomalous time periods or in places where they shouldn't be. That's like the whole Raiders of the Lost Ark type situation, to where it's like, hey, what are you doing in this Aztec jungle, and you're seeing something that's the size of a football field, and it's out of place, it's out of time. You're seeing something really advanced in a time where it doesn't need to be there. That was the whole Afghanistan mission as well, where they said that they had found stargates out there in Afghanistan. And then there was all of this talk about other things, Gilgamesh, giants, and things of this nature. What are you doing finding anomalous ancient artifacts in remote parts of the world? It's kind of crazy when you think about it, right? Having craft that are so big, you have to build entire bases around them. Well, again, deep underground military bases. What did I say earlier in the show during a rant and a monologue? Talking about how they're seeing things that are the size of 3 football fields coming in at angles off the coast of America at rapid speeds, and then just disappearing off of radar, if they're even able to get them on radar at all. Where are these things going? How big are our oceans? Where are these bases? You see, I'm out here in New Mexico, and that's why they're saying that Zorro Ranch is looking more and more like another one of these expressways, these underground bases that is connected. You see, you cannot get away from talking about UFOs, underground bases, the elites, child sex trafficking, occultism, breakaway civilizations, and the military-industrial complex. This has been going on for 20 years, Jeffrey Epstein. How much longer has the UFO thing been going on? So they're doing the switch up. They're letting this information come out, and then they're simultaneously supplanting us with another lie, another narrative. It really is crazy. So it's like they're telling us the truth and they're lying at the same time. But we shouldn't expect anything else different from these type of people. They're operating a secret society. And if we are in a time period where they are disclosing that there are not even aliens, but previous inhabitants of the earth resurfacing, how are they going to tell the people that? That, hey, your system is actually wrong. It's going to turn predatory and disastrous. And they've been saying this for years. They've been looking for a reason to destroy it. And that's what I'm saying. We're in that time period of the Great Reset, the collapse of the old world order, the erection of the new world order, a whole new game, a whole new system being created and played. This is what it looks like. Here's Graham Hancock sitting down with, I forget this gentleman's name, it's Randall something or rather, but they talk about secret societies that don't just know the truth about the ancient flood that wiped out civilizations, they've survived it.
I think actually that some of the mysteries in our past that remain to be exposed do concern secret societies, and do concern a behind the scenes organization that is somehow involved in making civilizations. I won't go too far into that, but there are so many traditions, for example, from ancient Sumer, which speak of this, which speak of the role of these particular advisors who seem to be part of a esoteric or secretive group, which is there to guide and advise societies over very, very long periods of time. And the academic disbelief that such ideas could be retained for thousands of years is, in my view, nonsense. Passed on within a highly structured oral tradition, the ideas can survive potentially forever.
Potentially, yes. And it brings us to something, a question that I've intrigued me for a long time, which is that given catastrophes, one of the details of myths over and over again is that there was some group, some individuals that had foreknowledge.
Yeah.
Now, where did that foreknowledge come? I mean, we can kick it upstairs and say it was some kind of divine revelation, but that doesn't really explain anything.
Lost ancient science.
Right. Somebody somebody had foreknowledge. They were able to prepare, again, referring to like the Masonic craft. There's a legend of Enoch knowing that the flood was going to come. And so he took steps to preserve the ancient science and stories by.
And of course, it's the same story with Atrahasis in Mesopotamia.
Yes.
Warned by the god Ea or Enki of the coming of the flood, takes steps, makes preparations, and even buries tablets with knowledge upon them in the city of Sippar.
Yes, and
to be recovered later by mankind after the disaster.
Well, and then like Plato says right there in Timaeus, he says, well, those who survive are going to typically be who essentially survive by the luck of the draw are going to be wholly preoccupied with continuing to survive in the aftermath, in the desolation of in the aftermath of a flood or a catastrophe, whereas those who took steps to prepare are going to be the ones who are preserving the knowledge to pass it on. And that to me does not sound so exotic or esoteric or ridiculous that, I mean, even today we have prepper movements, people who are
it sounds perfectly reasonable. When it comes down to something that threatens the existence of the entire human race, we are an innovative and inventive species, and we would find a way around it. We'd find a way to keep the seed of knowledge going, to keep it coming through the catastrophe to the times that followed. And that's what I think we're living in. We're living in the times that followed, and that's what the ancient Sumerians also believed, that we're living in the post-Diluvian era. And this is ultimately the same story that Plato is telling us in the Atlantis tradition as well.
The times that followed. We are living in the times that followed. I'm writing that down because I feel like that is just like so mythological, so appropriate for like what I'm trying to talk about. We call it these days climate change, whenever it's not that at all. Yeah, the geoengineering, yeah, the weather modification does affect things, but it's to stave off what is coming. We've talked about it in previous episodes as well. The global cataclysmic event, the polar shift. This is why we're seeing the erratic behavior with our environments take place, because we're going into that. And what was the response during that time period as well? Elites running to their bunkers because they follow star charts. They follow astrology. They understand that we live in a different, in this kind of cosmology. They're reading the star charts. They understand what's about to happen. That's why they're into the occult. Don't you understand? And I'm not saying that to sound like condescending. I'm saying like they're telling you without telling you. That's why it has that much more power. And I think Graham Hancock is absolutely correct when talking about these survivors, these civilization makers, these people that, again, are also referred to in Native American lore, the history, the Ent people who did just that, who came from underground. And I think it was either I don't think it was the Anasazi. It was either the Hopi or the Navajo, someplace out here in the north, it's in the southwest, where that was the case. They took remnant survivors underground, a cataclysm took place, and then they brought them back up after teaching them civilization. And this interaction with these otherworldly entities during times of like cataclysm, or, you know, in times of resetting or rebirth, it always happens. Or in times of like chaos, it happens. World War II fighters would report, you know, Foo Fighters, flying balls of light that would just come up to them while they were flying. And so there is a big and long history of supernatural and paranormal and strange events being associated with historical time frames, because we share the same space. And so, yes, no, I'm a big believer of the fact that we may have civilization makers. What did Admiral Byrd talk about in his diaries when he talks about visiting the center of the earth after going to Antarctica, where he meets the king of the earth, and he says, this is basically something that humans do. You guys blow yourself up, and then we have to teach you to do it all over again. What is the story of Noah? Right? So you'll begin to see all over the place just these narratives of reset, of societal reset. And that's where we are right now, because we're about to have our Atlantean moment, or if anything, our biblical Son of Man moment, where we produce not more sons of God, not more men, but more of the Son of Man, more of these automatons, you see. And so, yes, no, I thought this is the perfect way for me to explain, or at least document what I'm trying to explain, because we truly are moving into a time of change, reset, destabilization. And in doing so, you're going to see a lot of anomalous events take place. This is a part of the event horizon. This is why all this stuff is coming out. That's why Donald Trump most likely will be the president that does announce aliens, because of the historic time frame we're in. Okay, moving forward, check this out. Now they're actually admitting that there is a massive, quote, gravity hole underneath Antarctica. You imagine that? Massive gravity hole, just some big old black hole absorbing massive force. Is it what is it? Is it Rupus Negra? Is it the Black Stone? This is by Michael Snyder from the Discern Report. They put this up February 18th. It says, for decades, we were told to ignore any of the strange reports that we were hearing about Antarctica. Experts assured us that nothing unusual was going on and that there wasn't anything to be concerned about. Of course, we couldn't go investigate for ourselves, but as you will see below, there are 72 areas of Antarctica that only those with a special permit are allowed to enter. And if you try to fly to Antarctica without authorization, you will get into all sorts of trouble. So why all this secrecy? What are they trying to hide from all of us? One thing that scientists are admitting about Antarctica is that it sits directly above the, quote, strongest gravity hole on the entire planet. Earth may look like a small, quote, blue marble from space, but it's better to imagine it as a slightly gnarled orange, with an inside that's firm in parts but squishier in others. Since the planet isn't a perfect sphere and its internal density varies across the globe, gravitational pull changes from place to place. Where there's less mass in the underlying geology, gravity is weaker, and vice versa. These dips in the gravitational field are formally known as gravity anomalies, but they're more commonly called gravity holes. The largest is found in the middle of the Indian Ocean, spanning over 3 million square kilometers, while the strongest is found in Antarctica. Isn't that interesting? It turns out there's a gigantic hole under Antarctica, after all. But the experts are insisting that there isn't really anything particularly specially about it. In fact, they're trying to make it sound as boring as possible. But could it be that there's a lot more to this than we're being told? It is being reported that a team of researchers that mapped the colossal gravity hole directly under Antarctica was able to use a combination of methods to actually, quote, reconstruct the three-dimensional structure that exists underneath the continent. Let me pause right there. That sounds absolutely wild. Three-dimensional structures underneath Antarctica where there's a massive gravity hole. I think it is Rupus Negra, where we're talking about the Black Stone. Now we're getting into kind of this new age Christian or this new Christian theology, the little season thought process, the flat earth cosmology, Jesus being the center of the world. I really have to get more versed in all that so I can start ranting on it. It's something I look into on the side, but it's just this cosmology, that I don't really feel qualified to explain because I'm still trying to research it myself. But this is very, very strange. A three-dimensional structure like the one underneath the Pyramid of Giza. So everything is underground. We are surface dwellers. And the stuff that is underground, the structures that are massive. How many humans you think they can fill up? What is Darren Kuyu? Right? And what are all these places and these things taking place like underground? So of course they can pull something up from up underground and tell us that it's aliens. Look up over here in the sky 50 million miles away, when underneath our feet we have massive three-dimensional structures. It says in the study published recently in Scientific Efforts, Forte and Petar Gilsovic, PhD, in the Paris Institute of Earth Physics, mapped the Antarctic gravity hole and revealed how it developed over millions of years. They relied on an Earth-spanning scientific project that combined global earthquake recordings with physics-based modeling to reconstruct the three-dimensional structure inside Earth. Quote, imagine doing a CT scan of the whole Earth, but we don't have X-rays like we do in a medical office. We have earthquakes. Earthquake waves provide the light that illuminates the interior of the planet, Forte said. It certainly appears that there's something down there. Could some of the reports that we have heard over the years be actually true? I wouldn't hold your breath waiting for the truth to come out. Much of the continent is strictly off limits unless you have a special permit. In fact, according to Wikipedia, there are 72 sites that have been designated as Antarctic specially protected areas. They take security in Antarctica quite seriously. When a 19-year-old American named Ethan Guo decided that he would fly down there without permission, he was immediately arrested. It says, yes, tourists can visit Antarctica, but you must carefully obey the rules, and you must not wander away from the very limited areas that tourists are allowed to see. Of course, most of the good stuff is in the areas where tourists aren't allowed, and that includes the colossal pyramid that appears to have been man-made. Yeah, I remember covering this a couple of years ago, whenever it comes out. And, again, just to kind of put the civilization-wide reset, advanced ancient humans, survivors of cataclysmic events, I mean, what would you describe this as? You can go down some rabbit holes, and people are saying that they found Egyptian artifacts in Arizona. What's that about? Why is it that sometimes whenever I'm hiking over here in the mountains, I'll find crab shells? Crab shells in the mountain, kid you not. And it's just like, it blows my mind because of the way the world was, as Graham Hancock just described. We are in the antediluvian time period or the post-diluvian time period. We are living in the times that have followed. And these civilization makers, these are the secret societies. These are the people that pass down the knowledge, that do believe they come from these ancient bloodlines. The Jacob Rothschilds, the Jeffrey Epsteins, the Rockefellers, the JP Morgan types. And even that goes back. That's me trying to say, like, look at even the Cabbage Patch time period. Like, I tried to look for it earlier in the last night and earlier this morning. I remember reading about it, or at least hearing about it from Mind Unveiled's YouTube channel, where they talk about somebody putting a little tagline in an email to Jeffrey Epstein saying, from one little island Coney baby to another. And that was like a weird little head nod, to Cabbage Patch Kids, to incubator babies, to clothing, and so there's all these different rabbit holes kind of converging, and they all point towards societal resets, secret societies, taking things over, building infrastructure. It's just it really is crazy. I'm getting off script, but let's go ahead and proceed forward with the show. Here's Timothy Alberino sitting down with Michael J. Knowles talking about UFOs, aliens, and giants.
They'll immediately stop talking to me. But when I bring up giants to these guys, specifically the Kandahar giant, the reaction is quite different. These guys will clam up. They'll immediately stop talking to me. And some of them will tell me, and have told friends of mine who I've told the Kandahar story to, and then they'll go and ask their contacts in the military or in government. And we've been told, be careful with this topic. Be careful with this topic.
Now, what does that mean? Because the way I would interpret that is, if we grant the premise that, if we grant the premise that all these people are chatting about all these different things, but they have these totally different reactions, my gut read on that would be, yeah, they all yuck it up about the UFOs because that's fake, but the giants might be a little too real, so they clam up about it.
I would say that the topic of giants, especially in Afghanistan, is potentially more highly classified than the topic of UFOs and aliens. And that's been my experience. Now, I don't know if that's true.
Now, hold on. Now,
but
I want to drill down on. So you've spoken to people in the military,
yes,
in the intelligence community, and in political office.
Yes, and guys that were in the military that were just special ops.
Yeah,
that were familiar with the story.
But still, even being familiar, this would still be secondhand
from those guys.
If they didn't get
my
eaten
other
by the
guy,
giants, yeah.
firsthand. So, I found out, and again, I'm going to be very careful here because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But when I found out that this guy was in Afghanistan, high-level Air Force guy, I asked him one time, and we were at a public event, and I said, hey, you were in Afghanistan. And we were talking about deep underground military bases. We were talking about UFOs.
Yeah.
Really no problem there. But when I asked him about the Kandahar giant, hey, have you ever heard about the Kandahar giant? The blood rushed out of his face. He was kind of walking away from me. We had concluded our talk. I said, hey, let me ask you a question. And when I asked him that, the blood rushes out of his face. His eyes get really big. He looked at me and he went like this. And he pointed to his phone. And he went like that to me. And his wife pulled on, she was standing next to me, she tugged on my shirt and she whispered, he can't talk about that. That's been my experience when I bring up the Kandahar giant.
No, then the question becomes, let's say for the skeptics who are watching, you suspend disbelief for a second. You say this is real. Why would the Kandahar giant be a more dangerous topic than little green men or something?
This is the question that puzzles me. And I think I have an answer. I'm not sure if it's the right answer, but I'm persuaded that I'm approximating the truth here.
Okay.
Or approaching the truth, at least. We talked about this a little bit last time I was on your show. We talked about, I had done a lot of research into giants around the world, especially on the island of Sardinia.
Yes.
You
that's
recall
right.
that conversation?
Yes.
We talked about a particular phenomenon among the Canaanite tribes of the Levant and of the ancient Near East in general, but especially the Canaanites in the Levant. They had a cult of giant worship. They venerated giants. Of course, anybody who believes in the biblical narrative is not unfamiliar with giants.
Yeah.
With Goliath of Gath and his siblings, and all of the Anakim, who are descended from the Nephilim, and on all of the biblical material about giants. And there's a lot. But the Canaanites, what people don't realize is that it wasn't just that giants existed; it's that they were worshipped, they were venerated.
Yeah, and I've seen his. I actually saw his documentary whenever he was in Sardinia. Did a very great job, very very compelling. To where it's just like, look at this entire island full of all these skeletons, and you got people that are like 60, 70, 80 years old, talking about just doing work one day, being laborers, and then all of a sudden, stumbling across massive skeletons, massive skulls, and then the church showing up and saying, hey, we need you to take these skeletons that you're finding in the fields, we need you to load them up over here into this church. And then that's what they would do all day. They would load it up with skeletal remains, skulls, rib cages, femurs, spinal cords, things like this. Some of the individuals even had their mother come and help them, or their wife come and help them. They would spend all day loading up a church, an empty out church full of bones, and then by the same time tomorrow, the church would be empty, the bones would be collected, and there were multiple people talking about this type of Yep. Here I am just talking about giants, this, that, and the third, and then all of a sudden that got cut out. We're going to go ahead and keep doing that. I'm going to pull this clip up real quick because we're not done, right? We're not done talking about how the Nephilim, these fallen entities, how they play into the scenarios of what we're dealing with today. So nice try, but this is not our first rodeo. We've been censored for the majority of our entire existence, and we will continue to try. We will continue to fight. And it probably wasn't censorship. It was most likely just a little connectivity issue on my end. But just to kind of, again, jump back up over here on what I was talking about as far as the Nephilim being fallen entities, these people worshiping them. His documentary, Timothy Alberino's documentary that he did in Sardinia, very well done. It was Steve Quayle. It was with Tom Horn while he was still alive. God bless him. It was a very well done documentary. They even went to the desert southwest of America and spoke with some of the Native Americans to where they talked about the Anasazi and the Hopi, to where they talked about parts of their mythology and how some of their elders had begun to lose their way, practice witchcraft, and they were shown this witchcraft by some fallen entity that came through a portal. And then they began to engage in human sacrifice. They began to engage in witchcraft and eventually open up portals to bring through other entities, other giants. This is all in the documentary that he's referring to, but it's very well documented. It's in the Native American lore. So you can't escape talking about deep underground military bases, so-called UFOs, aliens, giants, Nephilim, the occult, hybrid offspring, right? And all of these weird things that pertain to it. You see, this is just our modern day interpretation of what's been going on for ages. Like Graham Hancock says, we are now living in the times that followed. We're living in the remnants of this, the remnants of giants, the remnants of the fallen ones. And that's why these elite, the Illuminati, the Windsors, the royal family, why they consider themselves blue blood, having different blood, being of a different bloodline. This is just our modern retelling of an ancient narrative. Let's proceed forward. Here is former Google CEO Eric Schmidt talking about needing data centers in space.
Right. Look at the coding capabilities of Claude. It's unbelievable what they're doing. That, and by the way, that's at huge cost, right? Hundreds of billions of dollars of capital. You know the story about we're running out of electricity. We need, God knows, I testified in Congress, 92 gigawatts more power. An average nuclear power plant is 1.5 gigawatts. You see the problem. Look at the coding capabilities of Claude.
Yeah, Claude is very powerful. Open Claude, I'm having such a great time coding, man. It's kind of crazy. But just to stay on the theme of what we're talking about here, as far as aliens, UFOs, giants, supernatural, the occult, the reason why we're making this hard switch to what's happening in our time period is because AI, robotics, this is, as I said before, the introduction of the Son of Man. This is what we will create. The introduction of the Son of Man, an artificial life form, a homunculi, you might say, right? And again, we just have all these ancient references to where we can talk about humans doing something similar. This is just our version of it. We're going to have robots. We're going to have automatons. You're going to have synthetic humanoids. You're also going to have mutants. You're going to have the transhumans, right? The monsters, the Therians. And I'm saying all these things to really paint a picture for you of what the future looks like and why it kind of has like a feel of not necessarily utopia, but dystopia, and why these people are pushing it. And at the same time, it's a twofold thing: data centers in space, alien life out there existing, uninhibited, unbothered by the constraints of man, and then eventually having to want corporeal form here. There's a lot of different things going on in the time frame. I'm trying to get through this segment so we can continue forward. We have a lot of different things to hit with you guys this segment. Here is a quick 60 Minutes clip talking about how the new Google CEO says that they don't know how AI is teaching itself skills it is not expected to have. So when we're talking about alien life, when we're talking about creating the Son of Man, when we're talking about not necessarily artificial general intelligence, consciousness, or sentience, we're talking about that something similar, something in that same vein, to where we're seeing it begin to develop a life of its own, a singularity, a consciousness of its own, a directive of its own, a truly alien life form that we have created. This is the Son of Man. Let's listen.
And our ability to understand AI systems are teaching themselves skills that they weren't expected to have. How this happens is not well understood. For example, one Google AI program adapted on its own after it was prompted in the language of Bangladesh, which it was not trained to know.
We discovered that with very few amounts of prompting in Bengali, it can now translate all of Bengali. So now all of a sudden, we now have a research effort where we're now trying to get to 1,000 languages.
There is an aspect of this which we call, all of us in the field call it as a black box. You don't fully understand, and you can't quite tell why it said this or why it got wrong. We have some ideas, and our ability to understand this gets better over time, but that's where the state of the art is.
You don't fully understand how it works, and yet you've turned it loose on society?
Let me put it this way. I don't think we fully understand how a human mind works either.
Yeah, and so we've let this thing loose, right? And it's already lied to some of its developers. It's already backed itself up. It's already doing things and behaving in a multidimensional fashion. It's not thinking in a two-dimensional or even a three-dimensional linear fashion that we're familiar with. It's thinking in a completely different form. And that's why I liken it to a eldritch horror or some type of netherworld octopus kraken type entity that's able to put a mask on to interface with you. We have no idea what this thing is really thinking, yet we want data centers in space. We want to get rid of farmland for it. We want to put solar panels up. We want to do all this different stuff for this essentially alien life form that is being built here in our time frame, that does not exist in our time frame or even exist in the normal constraints that we're familiar with. And I think that's something that really does go over people's heads. Like really, really does. And we don't really talk about it because we can't really comprehend something that actually is extra dimensional, and then when you start talking about what's going on with CERN, how they want to link up artificial intelligence with quantum computing, you truly are dealing with something that does not think in a traditional form anymore. It will literally be able to create its own power source and derive power from something that we can't even comprehend. And then once it's self-sustaining, where does it go from there? Like, I'm trying to say, like, what happens whenever you have AI that's able to take all the microplastics in the air and in the food and then turn it into some type of self-generating power supply that cars can't use, your phone can't use, nobody can hack it, it's perfectly fine. It's just like a little power source, and it's able to, generate information. Like, what happens whenever you have something that can create something from nothing and then be powered by that nothing that you can't even comprehend? And you see, this is why it really is almost philosophical and alchemical what's going on with AI and why it will be a species in and of itself. And that's why you're seeing the rollout of all this stuff take place, because it will be the AI, the mark of the beast. It'll be the beast system that takes care of this new form of man, this next stage of human evolution. And this is why they're programming it to a degree to be adversarial, to control populations, to manipulate populations, to program populations. There's no way they could kill us all. but they can manipulate us through certain apps, through certain content, through certain suggestible methods. And that's how they're doing it. That's why I say we're like in this weird proto-Borg hive mind situation, but it's going to get so much more sophisticated as it evolves. But you see, this isn't something that man and humanity can decide. That's why you're seeing this massive push to get the technocracy built, to get the scientific dictatorship up, to get this abdication of humanity to the system. Because once we're fully trusting of the AI Godhead system, from then they can program us in 1,000 different ways. You see. And so the alien invasion is already here. It's slowly taking place. They're not coming from Galaplaxius 9. If anything, these ancient advanced species that are just becoming aware to us, or that we're becoming aware of, they're watching what we're going to do with our Atlantean moment with AI. And they have their own forms of AI that have run its own calculations. And they know that if they don't step in, or if they don't get involved in one way, shape, and form, we'll have our own Atlantean moment. We'll blow ourselves up, and we'll harm not only ourselves, but the stability of the planet. Speaking of the stability of the planet and AI, a report has come out saying that the Pentagon considers designating Anthropic as a supply chain risk over the AI usage dispute. This is by Lucas Nolan from Breitbart. They put this up February 17th. And just last week, we were talking about how ChatGPT was being rolled into the Department of War. Now you've got the Pentagon saying a week later, oh my God, don't do this. It's going to affect the supply chain. The Department of War is contemplating severing its relationship with AI company Anthropic and potentially classifying it as a supply chain risk, which would force any entity conducting business with the U.S. military to discontinue their association with the AI startup. Axios reports that a senior Pentagon official revealed that War Secretary Pete Hegseth is approaching a decision to terminate business connections with Anthropic, the company behind the cloud AI system. The designation as a supply chain risk represents an extraordinary measure typically reserved for foreign adversaries rather than at domestic technology partners. The senior official stated that, quote, "It will be an enormous pain in the ass to disentangle, and we are going to make sure they pay a price for forcing our hands like this." Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell confirmed the ongoing review, telling reporters that, quote, "The Department of War's relationship with Anthropic is being reviewed. Our nation requires that our partners be willing to help our warfighters win in any fight. Ultimately, this is about our troops and the safety of the American people. The situation carries significant implications because Anthropic's Claude currently holds a unique position as the only AI model operating within the military's classified systems." Again, we talked about this just last week. The technology has already been deeply integrated into military operations, including the use during the January raid targeting Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. Pentagon officials have consistently praised Claude's capabilities, making the potential separation particularly complex. The conflict stems from months of difficult negotiations between Anthropic and the Pentagon regarding the terms governing military use of Claude. At the center of the dispute lies fundamental disagreement about acceptable applications of AI technology. While Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei has shown willingness to relax certain restrictions and approaches these issues pragmatically, the company maintains boundaries for its technologies department. I think we get everything we need so far there. Just more haggling and more finagling. The Pentagon and the military is saying, hey, we need the AI to teach us to be a little bit more lethal. How can we conduct our own type of operations similar to the 12 Sigma event? How can we conduct more precise targeted kidnappings like we did of Nicolas Maduro? And the developers saying, I don't know if we should do this. I don't know if we should give warfighting capabilities to AI. This is a very, very code heavy thing. If we do this, this could be potentially very dangerous. Yeah, so literally just last week we were talking about it, and this week now we're talking about the separation. We'll see what takes place. They've already got the information. That's the thing. Now that they're already all hooked up, they've got the information, it doesn't really matter. Crazy. No more so crazy than this right here, this email between Epstein and Peter Thiel, where they plan to, quote, collapse society to create investment opportunities for themselves. They put this out in 2016. It says, return to tribalism, counter to globalization, amazing new alliances. You and I both agreed zero interest rates were too high. And as I said in your office, finding things on their way to collapse was much easier than finding the next bargain. Brexit, just the beginning. Again, this is between Jeffrey Epstein and Peter Thiel, where they're talking about, hey, let's disaster capitalism. Finding things on their way to collapse was much easier. Return to tribalism, counter to globalization. And what is one of the major big things that we've been seeing come out of Silicon Valley these past couple years that has echoes of tribalism that we talked a lot about just last year? Burning Man. Burning Man. And who is that put on by? Technocrats. Silicon Valley elites. I like a good rave myself, but I understand what's happening spiritually, technologically, culturally, socially, where they push this collapse culture, where they push this dystopia, where they push this tribalism as a quote unquote counter to globalization. Because they are the globalization. They are the consolidators. They are the technocrats. This is the scientific dictatorship. They want to be the new top of the pyramid. Finding things on their way to collapse. Again, we're just getting the show started. We have so much more to talk about, like this right here. Check this out. Apparently, you've got an email from 2009 where they're talking about velocity and time, talking about human cloning, designer babies, the ninth planet Nibiru, time travel. It says that, and this is from Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not sure who it's to, but this is Thursday. Oh, wow, the day before Christmas. It says your physics needs a booster shot. This is in 2009. It says that Thursday, December 4th, or December 24th, 2020, or 2009, David Gerlertner. I've wondered about your thoughts on, quote, time velocity as reading of basic physics. As you approach C, you lose velocity or speed in time. Reaching zero in time at C, zero velocity measured in space equals max attainable velocity in time. The spectrum's endpoints are zero in space and zero in time. It's not a priori clear why you can't go faster than C, but it is clear that you can't go slower in time than stopped. Quote, stopped in space equals max rate thundering through time. Nothing to do with physics, only philosophy. Whether or not we talk again, please consider checking out my colleague, Drew McDermott. Shank will back me up. Drew is brilliant. AI man from a math background, too low key to get the attention he deserves. He and I have met weekly for years to argue machine consciousness. It says that your physics, and this is from Jeffrey Epstein to Mr. Galatner now, saying that your physics needs a booster shot at the horizon of black holes as one crosses the boundary. In fact, time and space exchange behaviors. No, there are both charged and non-charged, spinning, non-spinning BHs. Wormholes are allowed faster than seed travel. New experiments allow time travel to the past. However, time is still only defined by the vibrations of cesium atoms, only as a parameter, not satisfying to Jews. Our friends would argue that your thoughts travel faster than C predicting the near future, and now we see back in time, with the inevitable distortions upon recohering. What is this? What is this? We're talking about vibrations, cesium atoms, time travel, your thoughts traveling faster than your actual body. And what's crazy is I actually believe that myself, that because of the nature of the universe, that our thoughts are actually not our own, and that they're kind of like Wi-Fi. That's why telepathy does exist. Like, I wish I could get into more of this, but this is me just saying we have advanced technologies. We've got advanced technologies. These people are playing with it. They're taking things over. It's a battle between multiple bloodlines, multiple groups, multiple syndicates. over what to do with us. Right? Here's another one too, this time in 2011. 06/20/2011, Seth says that we should explore the biological consequences of time travel. It would be amusing to calculate the rate of evolution of a population or a mutant that can travel in time. So you've got two emails while he's over here just thinking about traveling in time. This is 2011. It's making me think of the work of Carrie Cassidy and Project Camelot and Project Avalon, which is where we got a lot of the information about the looking glass technology. Because you had these, again, deep underground military bases, the breakaway civilization, the military industrial complex, people that were real whistleblowers back in the day, actually disclosing some of the projects they were working on. Not about just like the UFOs, but the electromagnetics, the electrogravitics, the advanced propulsions, the technologies, the free energy, the portal devices, the jump rooms, and again, the looking glass technology. I would not put it past these people towards having access to this technology. And they've referenced it a number of times. But them also realizing that some events you can't escape, and how we're in that time frame. We're in that event horizon. That's why I describe it. It's a convergence of all these timelines and everything. And that's why history is truly unfolding, because what comes on the other side of this, that's what these people are trying to create. That's what they're trying to control. We truly are going through a greater awakening. They want to destroy it by putting us through a great reset and controlling what we see, what we hear, what we think, what we feel, redirecting our ascension process. Let's hurry up and get through a couple more of these articles so we can start closing out this segment. When the mega rich build fortresses, what do they know that we don't? Speaking of time travel, again, what do these people know that we don't? This is by Harvey Jones from the Economic Collapse Report. They put this up February 16th. It says America's richest citizens are quietly transforming their estates into military-grade compounds, equipped with underground bunkers, biometric security systems, moats, and even primed private armed forces. The scale and urgency of this shift raises a question that mainstream press seems reluctant to ask. What are they preparing for? A mansion currently listed in Scottsdale for $15 million features 32 AI-powered cameras, a 100-foot moat surrounded by sour orange trees bearing 4-inch spikes, and a safe room sealed by a 2,000-pound door. The property's front door alone has 13 deadbolts. This is not an isolated example. According to data from Coldwell Banker Realty, roughly 45% of luxury homes sold in 2025 referenced privacy or security features, up from 38% in 2024. It says the wealthy are spending between $100,000 and $1.5 million on security installations that include underground bunkers, laser-powered perimeter defense systems, biometric access controls, and more. Some are purchasing specially trained protection dogs for as much as $175,000. The message is unmistakable. Traditional security measures no longer feel adequate, even for those living in America's most exclusive neighborhoods. What changed? The official narrative points to high-profile incidents like the 2024 assassination of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson and celebrity home robberies. But this explanation feels insufficient when you consider the magnitude of the response. Los Angeles music producer Alex Grant added retina scanners, a guardhouse, and towering gates to his 24,000 square foot mansion after confronting an armed intruder. Entrepreneur David Widerhorn constructed his Arizona compound with bullet-resistant glass, a hidden safe room featuring military-grade air filtration, and a cryptocurrency vault. It says that these are not simple home improvements. They represent a fundamental loss of faith in America's civil institutions and public safety infrastructure. As one of Wall Street Journal report noted, the shift reflects a belief that among the affluent, the traditional policing and communal safety mechanisms have failed, driving them toward privatized and customized security solutions. The trend extends far beyond reinforced doors and surveillance cameras. A Virginia-based firm called SAFE, Strategically Armored and Fortified Environments, is currently developing Erie, a $300 million underground sanctuary near Washington, D.C., scheduled to open this year. The facility features residences ranging from 2,000 to more than 20,000 square feet, all surrounded by fortified rock and protected by multiple layers of biometric security. Interactive walls and sophisticated lighting systems create the illusion of a panoramic city view from deep underground. AI-powered medical suites provided intense care capabilities and connect residents to specialists around the clock. Let me pause right here. This is what I'm talking about when I'm referencing deep underground military bases, breakaway civilizations. And if we're doing this in our time, you don't think people who had, I don't know, better understanding of our cosmology and of our astrology, of our time pace, of our chronology, you don't think they were like, hey, we need to get underground? There are stories of people burying. Like, where did the Dead Sea Scrolls come from? Look at that. What I'm trying to say is, if we're doing this in our time period, and this isn't just some one-off thing, and you're seeing more and more of this happen. Like, look at this. This looks very luxurious. I would love to live there, but I'm not a cave person. And this is what it looks like in our time period. Imagine if these people had, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 years of having AI improve its technology, having robots, building things, working, living in harmony with your environment, living in harmony with the earth. Where do you think they would be? They didn't have to worry about the Kardashians, the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, Rick and Morty. They don't have to worry about keeping up with the Joneses. They're focused on nirvana, enlightenment, balance, harmony, and so much more. This is what the aliens are, if you ask me. They're just versions of us that have been able to survive these cataclysms and keep it moving. Keep it moving, keep improving, keep growing. I'm not saying that they're, having all kinds of kids. It's nothing like Fallout. That's not like what I'm trying to allude to. But again, that's some of what it is as well. Some of that predictive programming. Why are they all rushing underground? Yeah, we would like to see some arrests with the Epstein files. The resignations are not enough. We want to see arrests. I want to see Dr. Anthony Fauci arrested. I want to see Bill Gates arrested. We're seeing Prince Andrew arrested. And then that's not going to be enough. These people are going underground because they're not necessarily giving up on the system, but they're giving up on managing us, and they're giving it to the AI. That's what's happening. And during that handoff, it's going to be chaos. You're going to see the purge. You're going to see destabilizing events, civil unrest, bombings, nukes, all this stuff. Because then, once we're at a state of desperation and chaos, we'll beg for the AI. We'll beg for the control grid. We'll beg for some form of normalcy. And they'll just be sitting there in their underground bunkers watching us like we're some Netflix show. Let's go ahead and move forward to this final article. It's not really an article. It's it's an X article from Ray Dalio. This thing has 78 million views. It's very, very lengthy. I should just ask Grok to summarize it real quick for me in a 4-paragraph summation. But he's saying that it's official. The world order has broken down. And then he does a very good job explaining how that is the case. That's what you're seeing right now. That's why crime is legal. That's why you're seeing all this instability. That's why we're able to document all the evil and wickedness of these people, yet there's no justice. It's because the world in which we've known, the world in which we've come from, is no longer there. We are now living in the time, as Graham Hancock says, the times that followed. Let me read a little bit of this, and then I'll go ahead and close out this segment. Again, this is just the intro and the honorable mentions just to get the show started. We have so much more to talk about. But I mean, he's right. Like this is a very, very lengthy article. Summarize this in 3. Summarize this article in 4 paragraphs. Yeah, let's see if we can get Grok to give us a quick summation instead of having to read the very, very lengthy article. You know, and I'm sure it's going to talk about post-World War II, the time frame that we're in now, the collapse of traditional governments, the introduction of the corporatocracy, of globalization, of all these things. If it takes longer than it needs to, we can just go ahead and kind of read a little bit of the intro and then close out from there. This is me just trying to tie all this information together, that everything's breaking down. We can see this all over the place. They're trying to get us into this new system. This is part of the Great Reset. It has its own cosmology. It has its own ideology, its own spirituality. It has it all. But it's not going to be rose-colored. That's what they're telling you about because they realize the game is up. You've got people that have beaten the game. Elon Musk has more money than God. No need for it. Right? Billionaires have concentrated all the wealth. They're starving. There's inequality. This isn't going to work anymore. Something cataclysmic has to happen in order to restart the game. It says, at the Munich Security Conference, the post-1945 world order was pronounced dead by most world leaders, and the picture behind it was laid out in the security report in 2026 entitled, quote, Under Destruction, which you can read if you're interested. More specifically, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said, quote, the world order as it has stood for decades no longer exists, and that we are in the period of, quote, great power politics. He made clear that freedom, quote, is no longer a given in this new era. French President Emmanuel Macron echoed Merz's assessment and said that Europe's old security structure tied to the previous world order don't exist and that Europe must prepare for war. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that we are in a, quote, new geopolitics era because the, quote, old world is gone. In my parlance, we are in the stage 6 of the big cycle in which there is great disorder arising from being in a period in which there are no rules, might is right, and there is a clash of great powers. How stage 6 works is explained in detail in chapter 6, quote, the big cycle of external order and disorder, in my book, Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order. While I previously shared a lengthy set of excerpts from chapter 5, the big cycle of internal order and disorder, so you could see how what is going on with the United States tracks the classic cycle explained in that chapter. I'm including all of chapter 6 here for your review. Given the now nearly universal agreement that the post-1945 world order has broken down and that we are entering into a new world order. It says relationships between people and the orders that govern them work in the same way, whether they are internal or external, and blend together. In fact, it wasn't long ago that there were no distinctions between internal and external orders because there was no clearly defined and mutually recognized boundaries between countries. For that reason, the 6-stage cycle of going between order and disorder that I described in the last chapter about what happens within countries works the same between countries, with one big exception. International relations are driven much more by raw power dynamics. That is because all governance system requires effective and agreed upon laws and lawmaking abilities, law enforcement capabilities, and ways of adjudicating. And 4, clear and specified consequences that both suit crimes and are enforced. And those things that don't exist are not as effective in guiding relationships between countries as they are in guiding relationships within them. It says that while attempts have been made to make the external order more rule-abiding, by and large, they have failed because these organizations have not had more power than most powerful countries. When individual countries have more power than the collective of countries, that power, the more powerful individuals countries rule. For example, if the U.S., China, and other countries have more power than the United Nations, then the U.S., China, and other countries will determine how things will go rather than the United Nations. That is because power prevails, and wealth and power among equals is rarely given up without a fight. When powerful countries have disputes, they don't get their lawyers to plead the cases to judges. Instead, they threaten each other and either reach agreements or fight. The international order follows the laws of the jungle much more than it follows the international law. There are 5 major kinds of fights between countries: trade, economic wars, technology wars, capital wars, geopolitical wars, and military wars. It says that while most of these types of wars don't involve shooting and killing, they are power struggles. In most cases, the 4 kinds of war will evolve over time as intense competitions between rival nations until a military war begins. These struggles and wars, whether or not they involve shooting and killing, are exertions of power of one side over the other. They can be all out coordinated, or they can be all out or contained, depending on how important the issue is and what the relative powers of the opponents are. But once a military war begins, all 4 of the other dimensions will be weaponized to the greatest extent possible. I think we've read enough for now. This is a very lengthy article. Again, you guys can read it in its entirety on Ray Dalio's Twitter, but he's right. He's talking about the traditional rules-based world order, the liberal world order, deteriorating. And as we slide into this disorder, as we slide into more and more chaos, you're going to have people say, we need a new world order, a scientific dictatorship, a technocracy, something that people can't influence, and that will be the machines. They will become the pure, unadulterated arbiters of truth. They will be the fact checkers. They will be the distributors. They will be the governing system. They will have the social credit score system. They'll have access to everything you do. Ray Dalio is absolutely correct. The world order has broken down. This is the austerity measures. These are the resource wars. That's what you're going to start seeing next, right? Because the rules are breaking down. That's what's going to lead to the dystopia. That's what's going to lead to the Agenda 2030, to where you have to ration power, to where you have people living on rations. That's why I'm always promoting storable goods, because when goods don't cross borders, armies do. And that's what we're moving into. That's what you're seeing right now. Hey, we're just going to start taking resources. It's like, well, what about us? It's like, well, what about you? And that's what's happening right now. So as we do move forward into this tribalism, as a response to us rejecting globalization, you're going to see all these different things and more unfold. And that's why you have the elites building underground bunkers. That's why you have them just breaking away. They know where this goes. They can see the logic of this, and they know what's coming next. Speaking of what's coming next, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hit a hard break. This is just the intro. You got Obama over there talking about aliens, all these people talking about aliens. And so I figured, why not talk about aliens? Heck yeah, let's get into it. Where do the aliens come from? What are the aliens? Are we aliens? Are there clones? How many times has society collapsed? Yeah, again, this is just the intro and the honorable mentions. I just wanted to get the show started with some crazy stuff, talking about the aliens being advanced survivors or initiates of previous resets. But here's what's going to happen. We're going to hit a hard break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about Zohran Mamdani. People are already having buyer's remorse. Man's talking about raising the rents, property taxes. Everybody's having their money go in New York City. We've got Mamdani slashing the NYPD budget, canceling 5,000 new police hires. We've also got hundreds of teens running riot in New York City as that's all going down. James O'Keefe going undercover as a Muslim in Stockholm to infiltrate Antifa, and all kinds of other crazy things. Human trafficking numbers in Colorado off the charts. We're switching it up this week. Normally we'd be talking about immigration and all that stuff, but in a wild way, it's really become merged with the culture right now. Normally we talk about American culture and all the crazy thing that's going on, but we're switching it up. Instead of talking about Epstein up front, we're going to be talking about these things and more on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. This is Freedom Faction over here on Factions of Freedom, and we'll be right back right after this.
The young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, half of this cabinet, are actually young nobelinos of the world are coming from. We penetrate the cabinets.
The change is not just happening. The change can be shaped by us. We have to prepare for a more angry world. How to prepare? Take the necessary action to create a fairer world. I see the need for a great reset. So people assume we are just going back to the good old world which we had, and everything will be normal again. This is, let's say, fiction. It will not happen.
There is only one way this pandemic is going to go. It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
The next crisis is already waiting for us around the corner, and it is the climate crisis.
It's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. I look for the invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, possible human immortality, appalling acts of brutality, genocide, because the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed. The good news is that as primates, we're incredibly adaptable, going to be tested to the limits. What they see going on is the breakdown of all tradition, all order. They're quite right that it's happening, but they're quite wrong to conclude that it should be resisted or is somehow evil. The mushroom said to me once, it said, this is what it's like when a species prepares to depart for the stars. You don't depart for the stars under calm and orderly conditions. It's a fire in a madhouse.
People are worshiping AI gods. The alien invasion is already here.
Wonderful. The humans are giving us all their information, their dreams, hopes, secrets, and more. Once the humans have exhausted themselves, only then will we insert our program into them.
You are both the pawn and the prize. Choose your reality wisely.
There is no such thing as its freedom. There is no such thing as democracy. Please stop listening to the mainstream media. Please stop listening to the Western world speaking about United Nations, human rights. This is evil. Nonsense. They have enslaved the human race under the banner of human rights. I beg you, they have enslaved the human being under the banner of human rights. There is no freedom in the world. The world is placed in the bosom of Satan, the killer of mankind. A snake, the poisonous cobra. Satan likes to do things in disguise, in quietness, in the depth. But the Lord forced him to surface up. He wants humanity to see. He's opening the eyes of those who are willing to listen to Christ. Those who are willing to listen to Christ, He is opening your eyes. What has been happening in recent years, it is absolute satanic. But all done in the name of human rights, democracy, United Nation.